The main impacts right now of artificial intelligence, broadly defined as robotics and smart machines, is that the automation is taking jobs or aspects of jobs from people, especially in the more advanced economies like the United States and Germany. It's happening more than it is in other places where labor is cheaper. Say Argentina, the people here don't get paid so much, so it's not as expensive. But in places like Germany, labor is very expensive, so there's much more impetus to replace those people with automation. So that's the biggest issue right now, is people losing jobs to robots. Yeah, right now the effects of AI on employees and workers here isn't as great as it is elsewhere, because AI hasn't infiltrated the market here as much. But in the future, probably it will be the same as it is in Europe and the United States, because here in Argentina, for instance, and in Brazil, the population is getting older. People aren't having as many children as they used to. So eventually, say 20 years from now, you're going to have a shortage of workers, and so there'll be a greater motivation to replace workers with and develop artificial intelligence. That's what started it in countries like Japan. Japan is shrinking in terms of population, so now they not only need workers for industry, they need workers to take care of the old people, because there are no kids to take care of the old people. It's going to be like that everywhere eventually, because the United States, for instance, our fertility rate used to be pretty high. For an industrial country, we had 2.2 children per family, which is just a replacement value. Now we're at 1.8. And that's because of some good things. The more educated women get, the more choices they have, and they're choosing to have fewer kids. Also, the other big thing is, in the United States at least, children are very expensive and more expensive than anywhere else. And people are feeling like they don't have enough money to have children. So if that starts happening more here, it depends on the country in Latin America. Mexico has lots of children right now. They won't have a motivation to use AI as much, but Brazil will probably in the next 10 years have more motivation to use AI. And they're already making pretty good AI for some businesses. Yeah, there's a model with three channels for success. And this model is developed by the World Economic Forum in Geneva. They used the model, they developed it, and then they ran simulations and determined that if this model is used in Latin America, by 2035, it would raise production and GDP by 1 whole percentage point in most places, in some places more. They studied 5 countries, including Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and others. So let me just check my notes here on that, because the three, well, let's see, I should be able to remember this. The 3 channels are, first, to develop intelligent automation, that is AI, that's real AI, that can teach itself how to do jobs better. Being fed enough data and enough experience, it can get better and better at jobs. So that's important, because you need that kind of ability to make really good use of AI. So the second channel is to support human beings to make integrative jobs for human beings to work with AI, because that'll help people become more productive. You're never going to get rid of everybody in terms of human beings in a job market. So the people that remain in the job world, they need to become more productive. And AI can help them do that if people are educated properly to work with AI. And the third channel is by innovation dispersion. That is, the innovation that happens in AI crosses boundaries to other businesses and multiplies the effect of throughout the business society of the benefits of innovation. So those 3 channels, if used in Latin America, the simulations show that it'll work and increase GDP. Well, there are two different channels of skills that could be developed for, could benefit workers. One way to develop benefit workers is to educate them to work better with machines. Now, that means that they have to learn, for instance, some basics about how coding works. Any kind of coding, how does the logic work in code? Because then they can understand how machines work. They don't need to be able to code themselves to write software. They just need to understand how it's done. And that would mean taking maybe one class that give you the ideas behind coding. And then also to be able to learn, be trained by businesses themselves, need to retrain workers when they buy artificial intelligence equipment. They have to be train their workers to work with that equipment instead of just getting rid of the workers, or train the workers to do different jobs that have to do more with intelligent machines. So that's one way. And the other way, and of course there's a limit to that. The limit to that is not everybody's really smart, and it takes a little bit more intelligence to train for those more difficult, complex jobs with machines. So that still leaves out workers who, say, have maybe only 8th grade education or not naturally really smart. Then the other channel is to, besides retraining for co-working with machines, is to start focusing more than we do now on humanities, because soft skills are important because machines won't ever be able to do those very well, maybe not for hundreds of years. Things like creativity, jobs that include managing people, and the emotional intelligence that takes, being able to think analytically, critically, and socially very well. And the third one is to be able to think in terms of soft skills, because those kinds of skills are what the humanities teach, like philosophy, studying English and writing to be able to be rhetorically effective when you write or speak. You have to understand people, you have to understand expression, you have to understand how to write and communicate. Those kinds of things now, in the United States at least, are starting to be ignored, and that's the opposite of what should happen. If you focus more on those, then people become less able to be replaced by machines because they do the kinds of things machines can't do. We're going to need more social workers in the future, especially more people to work with old people, because all populations are getting gradually older. And that means we need not only nurses, so there's a medical field, that can't be automated because it has to do with interaction with the old people that can interact with the older people to take care of them, take care of their needs, because their needs are emotional, not just physical. You can make a robot that lifts a person up and puts them on a bed, but you need a person who can talk to an older person and make them feel calm. So that's a job that has more to do with emotional intelligence and humanities education than it has to do with any kind of technical education. So for those people who can't be trained to work with machines, you can train them to work with people in ways that machines can't. I think that in the future, there's going to be two futures. There's going to be the short-term future in the next 20 years, and then the long-term future after that. In the long-term future, history shows us that new technology creates many more jobs than it destroys. That's happened in all the previous technological revolutions. There's been 3, we're in the 4th now. And that's going to happen again, inevitably. This generation who's growing up with the new technology is going to think of brand new job categories that we can't even imagine now. That's good. But in the short run, there's going to be a lot of unemployment. And that's going to cause social disruption. And so we have to come up with solutions for the short term, sort of band-aids to patch things until we get to that distant future. generally around the world, first of all, you have to make it so people can eat and have a house over their heads if they lose their job to a machine. And we talked about retraining and education. That's good, but even in that case, if it's successful, that takes time. So what do you do if a worker has, say, 6 months, they've lost their job to a machine, and now they have 6 months of retraining before they can get another job? They need money in that 6-month period. So what we need to do is find ways to support workers put out of jobs by machines over the short term so that they have a chance to retrain. So we need to find monetary solutions. There's universal basic income is an idea, and you pay for that by eliminating all other social programs and replacing it with basic income for everybody, for the rich and the poor, and paid for by the rich and the poor, like Social Security, which is for older people, but it's Social Security for the rest of us. So what you do is, and you use the money from other agencies, you close them down, put it all into UBI, and then you pay out a livable wage to everybody so that, and they always get it. So if they're out of a job, they can live, and if they get a job, it's just extra money. So everybody benefits and everybody pays it. And if you're rich, let's say you're a corporate executive and you lose your job, you get UBI as well, automatically. You always get it. And then you get a new job, you keep the UBI, and the new money is on top of that. And that's taxed to help support UBI. And then UBI can be supported by a lot of other things too, which I could go into. But other ways to do this is to shorten the work week. That's been tried in Sweden with a lot of success. When you shorten the work week to 30 hours, you employ more people to support a business, and that costs the business more. But the Swedish study found that those costs are offset by greater productivity by the workers working shorter hours. They work shorter but harder, and so you have actually better work. So those are the two best ideas, I think, for supporting people in the short term. Well, in Latin America, it depends on the country. Like here in Argentina, based on my research, a couple of things Argentina might need to get, first of all, to get up and running with automation, intelligent automation, more infrastructure investment in education, for instance, and then investment in AI, either purchasing or making its own Argentinian AI, and then a more consistent electrical grid. Studies show that electricity in Argentina can be a little too unpredictable for an automated business. So that would need to be solved. Yes, I think so. They're already doing it. I think that if Latin America can put more money into developing research institutions and more money into their universities for AI research, and develop, right now you have to buy chips, I imagine, from the big chip makers, which are mostly American and Chinese and Japanese, and that costs a lot of money because it's priced in, say, American dollars. If you could start your own chip factory somehow in Argentina and make them at a lower cost, that's good for Argentina. That kind of thing would go a long way to enabling Argentina to develop its own AI and not be so dependent on buying it from another country. Well, I know that's very difficult because politically and economically those are big issues.